Can I use science to guide my decisions, my choices, and my actions in a way that does not depend on faith? Well, in this endeavor, we immediately run into a problem, because scientific evidence is always incomplete. The conclusions that science gives us are always uncertain. Only in pure mathematics, only in pure mathematics is evidence alone enough to lead to certainty. Because if we look at the proof of Fermat's last theorem, we're sure that is correct. We are sure it is true. But in science, as Richard Feynman once said, we have found it of paramount importance that in order to progress, we must recognize ignorance and leave room for doubt. Scientific knowledge is a body of statements of varying degrees of certainty, some most unsure, some nearly unsure, none absolutely certain. In science, we are pretty sure that things like the standard model of particle physics are correct, but we're not certain. Because no matter how much scientific evidence we gather, there's always more evidence to bring in. And that new data could change our conclusion. And this lack of certainty is a problem if we want to make science our life philosophy. And to illustrate why this is a problem, I have a little story to tell. It had some pictures with it, but I'll ask you to now just visualize the story. Oh, wait, we're back. Okay, so here we go. I have a story to tell then, assuming it stays up. We'll see. Oh, there we go. All right. So this story is about a friend, Sally. And Sally is out hiking, and she got lost. So she's been hiking for a number of hours longer than she thought she was going to be. She's eaten all of her trail mix, and she is very hungry. And she knows she's at least several hours from base camp if she can even make it there. But thankfully, she notices that across a very deep valley, there is a plate of bacon. Oh. You saw the bacon, though, right? Because science and faith might not be an either-or proposition, but bacon is definitely either-or. Either you like bacon, or you're wrong. So you've got the picture in your head. So Sally is really hungry, and she really wants the bacon, but she can't hike to the other side of the valley. It is too far for her to jump, and the valley walls are too steep for her to hike down and back up. But fortunately, if you notice, there was a bridge. Right? There was a bridge across the valley, and she has to decide if she is going to cross that bridge. But unfortunately, it's a rather sleazy-looking bridge. It's missing some slats, the rope is fraying, the bridge sways violently back and forth every time the wind blows. Will the bridge hold if Sally attempts to cross it, or will it collapse, leaving her to plunge to her death? She may think it will hold her, but how can she be certain? Well, this bridge gives us the ultimate definitive test of certainty, because if Sally attempts to cross the bridge, it indicates that she must be certain that the bridge will hold her. Unless she is suicidal, she would have no motivation to step onto a bridge that she didn't think was going to support her weight. Likewise, if she chooses not to cross the bridge, then it proves that she is not certain that the bridge will hold her. And ultimately, I think this is the key measure of certainty. Certainty is certainty to act. Purely based on science, we can never attain this kind of certainty. There's always going to be some evidence that suggests the bridge is going to hold up Sally's weight, like the fact that it hasn't fallen down just yet. There's always going to be some other evidence that suggests it's going to collapse, like the fact that the rope is fraying by the second. And in this situation, science remains uncommitted to either option. But Sally has to make a decision. And in making that decision, she has to place a form of conviction, a form of sureness, a form of certainty in one side of the proposition or the other. She maybe is going to hope that the bridge will hold her, in which case she might cross, or she might despair that the bridge will not hold her, in which case she would not cross. Or contrariwise, she might hope that she can make it back to base camp without any more food, or she might despair that she's going to survive either way, and therefore attempt the crossing just to get a quick resolution to her dilemma. But no matter what decision Sally makes, she is she has to invest herself in a proposition that from a scientific standpoint cannot be fully justified. Thus, in making decisions, we need a kind of sureness, a kind of certainty that science is not equipped to give us. And this certainty can take many different forms. It can take the form of hope, despair, cynicism, optimism, pessimism. But we need certainty in some form. And all of these forms of certainty share one thing in common. They require some form of faith. Because faith is how we know that something is going to turn out a certain way, even when the evidence is incomplete. Now, we've seen that science can give us greater and greater confidence in a particular proposition, but it never gets us all the way across the gap from indecision to certainty. It may be that science gets us almost all the way there and there's only a small gap. It might be that science only takes us a little bit of the way and there's a big gap, but there's always a gap. And that last step across the gap is always the step of faith. Now, this need not be religious faith. You can have faith in the goodness of humanity, faith in a person, faith in the law of gravity. It can be in many things, but decision-making requires faith. Because faith is the thing that leads to decisive action in the face of incomplete evidence. And so by itself, science doesn't really form a good working life philosophy.